This is a Film Stories original podcast. Welcome everyone to the X-Cast. The truth is in here. I'm your host, Russ Hugo, and welcome back to the I Want to Believe Minute, where we unpick the second X-Files movie 1 minute at a time. Today, helping me to explore minute 61, running from approximately 61 minutes up to 61:59, is once again Jim Beard. This is our final minute together. Welcome back, Jim. How is your afternoon going? Or evening going?
It's full of boxes. We're
Scary.
going from one box to another.
Speaking of, we just ended off with Father Joe having a seizure. We're jumping into Cheryl Boltz being trapped in this box, one of the more disturbing scenes of the film. Overall, I've talked about on previous minutes that I really like the actor who plays Cheryl Boltz. I think she does an excellent job of playing somebody who is in a very difficult, frightening, harrowing situation and shows accurately somebody who is incredibly competent, like a trained FBI agent, but still also portrays legitimate fear and strength. Overall, you're just seeing a few minutes, a little bit here in our minute, but overall, what's your take on Cheryl Boltz as a character and her performance in general, the actress in this film?
It's a competent, portrayal, and I could relate to her. I think when you see something like this in a movie, you're automatically going to put yourself in that same situation and ask yourself, how would I react? Would I react the same way? Would I be a basket case? Would I fight back? Would I, try to escape? In that sense, yeah, she does a good job.
Okay, and with this, we start off with her in a box, and we have Alex Daikon from many other X-Files episodes, pretty much any Darren Morgan episode ever, including the psychiatrist, hypnotist from Jose Chung's, and also quite a few Millennium episodes as well. I think, two, at least, I could think of off the top of my head. Comes and brings food. One of my out-of-the-gate critiques of this minute and of the film in general I mentioned earlier is the xenophobic, Russophobic, cartoonish portrayal of Russians in this film. This scene kind of drives that home even further. You have all of these individuals in this space, and they're coming here giving food, and the fact that they don't speak any English at all and are attempting to speak Russian with this person, frankly, almost as unbelievable as a psychic. It's hard for me to imagine that none of them have any bilingual competence if they're here living in the United States. It just instead makes it feel more other and more scary. And look at these terrifying foreigners. This is the major part of the film that I dislike. Sure, some people are rolling their eyes and, okay, yeah, it's just a film. It is just a film, but these kinds of messages aren't great. And even going into today, but you look at this was in the context of the war on terror, and this is not helpful. Shout out, there's a lot of stuff to like about this film. This is not only, I think, ethically problematic, it's also just kind of stupid, which is a shame because I like the actor, Alex Daikon, and the atmosphere is great. But with that rant aside, Jim, what do you think?
Two things that I really want to say here. Number one, in some ways I sympathize with the production team, writers, everybody on this, because we've had so many serial killer movies, TV shows, Silence of the Lambs, being the prominent one or whatever, where they had to portray yet another victim being held in a strange place with strange people around, and to put that across and not have it come off as like, oh, we've seen this a million times in a movie, which is really sad if anybody's going to get numb to such a horrific thing as being literally held against, against your will in a place like this. The other thing is that there's a moment that really struck me personally, and that's when she tries to, if you pardon the pun, bolt and get out of this place. The path that she takes, she goes through what I believe is supposed to have been the dog chute, right?
I don't know if there's such a thing as a dog chute, but I think that might be a space where the dogs are trying.
It's a chute, and it has it has like the flap thing at the end. Well, yes. Okay, I'll tell you why I saw it that way. When I was a kid, one of my good friends, his house, big old house, and in the basement there was a passageway or a chute or whatever, very much like that. They had a pen on the back of the house where they kept their dogs, and then there was kind of a flap thing, and there was this, and I can only call it a chute. It was literally a wooden plank that ran, I don't know how long, 10 or more feet or so, and it was covered in like chicken wire to create almost like this tunnel. And for some reason, my friend, if we were in the basement playing around or whatever, he would sometimes say, well, let's go up the plank or the chute and then out, go outside that way. And I never wanted to do it, but I did it because, peer pressure or whatever. I was somewhat claustrophobic when I was a kid, and it was not that big of a tunnel, I guess, to go through, but also really weird because, like I said, the walls of it were chicken wire, so you could see through it, and you were kind of passing through parts of the basement, and it sloped upward, and then you would finally get out. To me, it was interminable that it went on forever, and I felt like I was going to get stuck or whatever. This is so funny to me. I watched that scene, and it's really quick though in the movie, but I got that whole sense all over again of her having to go through that, and then of course then she gets the dog confronts her, I guess is the best way to say it. So I really felt that scene very much because it really took me back to that childhood fear, I guess, if you want to call it that. Sorry, long-winded explanation.
That's what we had the minutes to explore this stuff. I had no concept that those were a thing at all.
It really looked a lot like that. Yeah, I mean, that's the only one that I had ever known, in that. But it was literally like hanging from the ceiling of the basement. I don't even really know what was holding it up. And that was another fear that, our weight could have made it collapse and fall down, but we never ever had a dog confront us before we went outside like she did. And you know what, that's another thing that's kind of scary too, is that although I love dogs as a child, if there was a very aggressive dog near me, I got really scared. So that was another thing, the idea of having to go up that little tunnel and then get there and then have a, snarling, biting, very aggressive dog suddenly in your face. So I really felt that whole anxiety and fear and rush for her to escape and then to be confronted with the dog.
I think it's a fair fear. Large dogs can be a real danger.
Yeah, and also when you're in an enclosed space like that, and it's literally, if it comes in after you can't get away from it, I'm almost surprised that, we don't really know how, the dog, I don't think the dog attacked her. Later on, she doesn't seem to have facial lacerations or anything from the dog. So I don't know what we're supposed to assume happened when that scene cuts, Yeah,
it's my hunch that being just a trained FBI person probably shielded herself, and then they came and got her and locked her up.
Yeah, definitely.
Your take on the dog chute as being a thing is interesting. I mean, if you look at the the space. I guess that makes sense, being a farm and all the rest. In my mind, this gets back to something I've talked about the previous minutes, and to give the caveat again, I think it was Darren Mooney or maybe Chris Knowles or someone who brought up the analogy of the film, that it is dealing with taking the concept of like an alien abduction, but instead talk about aliens as in foreigners abducting. And so there's all this iconography of like, we're going to keep you in the box, and then you go down a tunnel and there's an operating room and all of those things. So the dog shoot to me was just conjured up part of that idea of the iconography we've seen in things of like Fire in the Sky and other alien abduction films. But it's an interesting take. That's one thing, with my ethical concerns aside, a really interesting thing that the film is trying to do, especially visually, and I applaud it for that. I think it's very effective. I think it's a fairly disturbing scene, and even after seeing it a few times, it still makes me quite uncomfortable.
Yeah, agreed.
So at the end here, we learned that there is an actual supernatural connection. We get confirmation of it, at least semi-confirmation, besides the fact the supernatural being that there is people being able to do these transplants. But the idea that there may be something to the psychic connection. When Father Joe has his seizure, and then it cuts, and then the person on the operating table with the medical alert bracelet is having their seizure. So we finally are seeing this connection. But the fact that it comes later is, I think, smart. That it doesn't hold the viewer's hand too much. And that for me, the first time watching it, I didn't even really make that connection.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that I did either. And if that is what it's supposed to be, it's not any stronger than any other, hint of the supernatural. I mean, honestly, I think you can walk out of this movie and you can literally say there's just no supernatural stuff in this at all. I mean, it's totally, it's so light, I guess. It's
light, but it's there, and in my opinion, sure. I mean, this is just mine, and we're happy to disagree and still be friends. But that, to me,
okay,
because later we find out the connection between the two individuals and the psychic thing, the fact that it's happening at the same time, the coincidence is pretty strong. It's pretty strong.
Yeah. Well, okay, but I mean, I guess that goes back to the coincidence of the scripture numbers and the mailbox, right?
Yep.
Like, is that, it's funny because here's me saying, oh no, that's God, like God did that. And you were sort of, I hope I'm not mischaracterizing this, putting it more as a coincidence, Oh
no, I think it's more in the God sense too. No, we're in agreement of that for the Proverbs.
Okay. I misunderstood that then. Okay.
Yeah. No, I think we agree on that. I think we disagree on how it's being played out and all the rest. And disagree is a strong word because I don't really have a strong opinion. I just have how I read it originally. And that does not mean it's correct by any means.
Right. As you expect in X-Files, the movie's full of questions and you don't necessarily get all the answers. Jim, or if they are, those still have to be sort of, dissected and examined.
It is Carter's glory to conceal a thing, but the honor of the X-Cast to search out a matter.
Love it.
And there's the blaspheme for today. And before we wrap up this minute, is there anything else you'd like to talk about in the scene with Cheryl Bolts?
I'm trying to, get out of that childhood scene of me going down that tunnel. So I'm going to have to escape from that.
I hope this will be at least somewhat therapeutic, this conversation. Yes, otherwise, I apologize if we've dug up some terrors.
No. Interestingly enough, Russ, that's something I haven't thought about in years. So it was really interesting to kind of, for me to take that apart and make that kind of connection with that and like go, oh yeah, that's just like the thing that, my friend, he loved it. I don't know why he loved doing that, and we weren't like little kids. So again, it was a very tight fit.
That make me uncomfortable, but this is almost coincidental. The fact that we got you on for these 4 minutes and we got your favorite 2 minutes and we got a minute that you actually were aware of this crazy dog shoot thing. So this is Providence here.
Thank you. I was just going to say that this is Providence. It really, really is. Yes.
Oh, boy. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jim. But before we go, can you fill everyone in on what you've been up to? I know you've got a new podcast and writing. Where can folks tell us what's going on and where folks can catch up?
So writing really quick. I have two little self-press or self-publishing presses. One is Flinch Books. We have a brand new website, flinchbooks.com, FLINCH books.com, and that is with my publishing partner, John Bruning, and we do pulp anthologies and novels. We're working on a brand new novel right now, first one that we're publishing that was not written by either John or myself. And then I have also Becky Books, named after my late wife, Becky, and I do both fiction and nonfiction book, but they're all pop culture related stuff. We've already put out 3 books this year. We did a Bigfoot fiction anthology. I did a nonfiction Star Trek anthology where women writers each took on a female character from the original Star Trek series and kind of took apart the characters and talked about them. And then I just came out with a comic book, history-related book called Breaking Bold and Brave, which is a look at the classic Brave and the Bold comic from DC. You can see all of that on Amazon. Just go under books and put my name in. You can find me on Facebook under the Jim Beard and Becky Books page. Like I said, find me at flinchbooks.com. And then I'm also on the appropriately named for this podcast, X. I'm at writer Jim Beard. And if you're a Doctor Who fan, I'm really proud to say we've gone over a year now of the Doctor's Beard podcast. And what it is that I'm the new guy to Doctor Who, and my podcasting partner is a old-time Doctor Who fan. That he's been watching it for years and years and years. So we say we're a Whovian and a Nubian, or Nuvian, who looking at the show from the very beginning. We started in 1963 with An Unearthly Child, and we're up to about a little over halfway through John Pertwee right now, the third Doctor, and just having a blast. And we also now started reviewing for our Patreon page the Ncuti Gatwa episodes, which of course just began. And that's me.
Terrific. Well, thanks again, Jim, for joining you. I can't believe it's been 2 years since we last spoke.
2.5 years. It was January of 2022. Oh. Yeah, I know, really.
That's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And that's
don't be such a stranger, Russ. Don't be such a stranger.
Same to you, Jim. Same to you. This is a crazy world. We got to make the most of it. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk. It's always a treat. Coming up next, we have Carl Sweeney. He'll be back covering next week's block, starting with minute 63 with Clara Cook. But until then, always remember, trust no one.